One morning, a young man was accused of stealing a large sum of money from his own father. The entire household watched as he was blamed for something he never did. But there was one person who knew exactly what had happened: his stepmother. She had planted the evidence in his room herself. What she didn't know was that a housemaid would soon discover an old letter. A letter that could expose a secret far more dangerous than hatred. And once that secret came to light, everything this family believed would begin to fall apart. So if you think this story is about to take an unexpected turn, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, what country are you watching from and what time is it there right now? Now, let's go back to where it all began. In a small African city, the houses stood close together. The markets were crowded from the early hours of the morning, and in a place where everyone seemed to know everyone, it was almost impossible to keep a secret. In one quiet neighborhood stood a large family home. A man named Bakari lived there with his wife Amina and their children. But there was one person in that house who had never truly been treated like family. Bakari's son from a previous marriage, his name was Kofi. Kofi was 22 years old, tall, thin, quiet. He rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. And unlike his younger siblings, he never seemed to fit into the family. He knew it, everyone knew it. Ever since Bakari married Amina, Kofi's life had slowly changed. At first, he tried to win Amina over. He helped her carry groceries. He brought home whatever she needed from the market. And he treated her children like they were his own brother and sister. But Amina never accepted him. To her, Kofi was a reminder of the life Bakari had before her. A reminder she never wanted in her home. And over the years, that resentment turned into cruelty. Amina had two children, Malik, a 19-year-old boy, and Layla, a 16-year-old girl. And everyone in the house could see the difference between them and Kofi. When food was scarce, her children ate first. If anything was left, Kofi got it. And sometimes he got nothing at all. One night, Kofi returned from the market exhausted. It was almost 9 o'clock. He walked into the kitchen and lifted the lid from the dinner pot. Empty. He looked at the housemaid, Fatou. "Is there anything left for dinner?" Fatou lowered her eyes. "Nothing." Kofi glanced toward the dining room. "Did everyone eat?" She nodded. Then she quietly added, "Amina said you could buy something for yourself." Kofi gave a small smile. He didn't have enough money, but he didn't complain. He simply walked away. The next morning, he would have to leave for work before sunrise. Kofi didn't dream of becoming rich. He didn't want a mansion. He didn't want a luxurious life. He had one simple dream: to save enough money to open a small shop in the market. But even that dream was something Amina loved to mock. One morning, Kofi sat outside the house trying to repair his old shoes. Amina walked past with the other maids. She looked down at his shoes, then she laughed. "You still have those?" One of the maids laughed with her. Amina shook her head. "You want to open a shop? But you can't even afford a decent pair of shoes." Kofi kept his eyes on the shoe in his hands. Amina continued, "People like you shouldn't waste their time dreaming." She paused, then looked directly at him. "Know your place?" Kofi slowly raised his eyes. "I don't hurt anyone." Amina smiled. "Your very presence causes problems." Then she walked inside. Kofi said nothing, but those words stayed with him all day. What he didn't know was that Amina wasn't simply trying to destroy his dreams. She had a much bigger plan. She wanted Bakari to believe that Kofi was the source of every problem in the house, and she was about to make that happen. A few nights later, an expensive vase suddenly shattered in the living room. The sound echoed through the entire house. Kofi came rushing out of his room. He found Amina standing beside the broken pieces. Bakari was right behind her. Kofi looked at the shattered vase. "What happened?" Amina pointed at him. "Ask him." Bakari looked at his son. "Were you in here?" "No." Amina immediately spoke up. "You were the only person here a few minutes ago." "I was in my room." "Then how did the vase break?" Kofi looked down at the pieces. "Maybe it fell." Amina laughed. "Of course." She turned toward Bakari. "He always has an excuse." Kofi looked at his father. "Dad, I swear I didn't do it." But Bakari didn't listen. He simply said, "Clean up the mess you made." Kofi stood there in silence. It was the first time he had been punished for something he hadn't done. But it wouldn't be the last. A few days later, money disappeared. Then Malik's watch went missing. Then a torn piece of clothing was discovered inside Kofi's room. And every single time, Amina had an explanation, and Bakari believed her. Little by little, Kofi began to realize something terrifying. In that house, the truth didn't matter anymore. Only what Amina said mattered. One night, Kofi came home from work. His father was waiting for him. "Where were you?" "At the market." "And who told you that you could come home this late?" "There was a lot of work." Amina immediately stepped in. "He was probably out wandering around." Kofi turned toward her. "That's not true." Amina looked at him. "So now you're going to lie to your father?" Bakari suddenly shouted, "Enough!" The room went silent. Then he looked at Kofi. "You're the reason for every problem in this house." Kofi froze. Those words hurt more than anything Amina had ever said to him. Because somewhere inside, Kofi had still hoped his father would believe him. He had hoped his father would defend him. Instead, Bakari chose her. Kofi walked into his room and closed the door. He sat on the edge of his bed, and for the first time in years, he seriously considered leaving. But where would he go? He had almost no money, no other family to turn to, and nowhere else to call home. Then the next morning, Amina made her move. She was carrying a small wooden box. While Kofi was outside, she quietly entered his room. She looked around, made sure no one was watching. Then, she placed the box inside his wardrobe. She closed the door and walked away. About an hour later, Amina screamed through the house. "Bakari!" Bakari came running. She pointed toward Kofi's room. "Go look for yourself." Bakari opened the wardrobe. There it was, the wooden box. He opened it. Inside was a large amount of money, along with several important family documents. And at that exact moment, Kofi walked into the room. He stopped. His eyes went from his father to the box. "What is that?" Bakari didn't answer. Amina looked at him. "Ask him." Kofi stepped closer. "I don't know anything about that." Bakari grabbed the box. "How many times are you going to lie to me?" "Dad, I swear I didn't put that there." Amina suddenly started crying. "Even now?" She wiped away her tears. "I was only trying to protect this family from you." Kofi stared at her. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Then he turned toward his father. "Search my entire room." Bakari did, but he didn't need to find anything else. The box was enough. The decision was made. Kofi was no longer allowed to leave the house except for work. Part of his salary would be taken from him, and Bakari gave him one final warning. "If this ever happens again, you won't have a place in this house." Kofi said nothing. He simply walked back into his room. But someone had been watching the entire time. Fatou, the housemaid. She knew something was wrong. She had seen that wardrobe earlier. The box hadn't been there, not until Amina entered the room. Fatou knew the truth, but she was too afraid to speak. That night, Fatou heard something strange coming from Amina's bedroom. She slowly opened the door, just enough to look inside. Amina was standing in front of the mirror, holding an old photograph. She stared at it for several seconds, then whispered, "He can never know." Fatou quietly backed away. She had no idea what those words meant, but the next morning, she was about to find out. Fatou was cleaning Amina's room when she moved an old wooden chest. Several papers suddenly fell onto the floor. She bent down to pick them up, but one of them had fallen open. It was an old letter, very old. The date was more than 20 years earlier. Fatou glanced at the top of the page, and then she froze. There was a name written there, Kofi. Her heart started pounding. How could a letter that was more than 20 years old have Kofi's name on it? He had been just a little boy back then. Fatou began reading, one line, then another, and by the third line, her eyes widened because the letter wasn't just about Kofi. It revealed something about Amina, something she had been hiding for more than 20 years, something that, if Bakari ever discovered it, could destroy everything Amina had built. But before Fatou could finish reading, she heard footsteps. Someone was coming. Fatou quickly grabbed the letter and hid behind the curtain. The door opened. Amina walked inside. She closed it behind her. Then she began searching the room. She was looking for something, the letter, but it was gone. Her expression changed. She searched again. Nothing. Then in a low and frightened voice, she whispered, "Who took it?" Behind the curtain, Fatou held her breath, and in that moment, she finally understood. Amina wasn't afraid that someone might read the letter. She was afraid that Kofi might discover the truth written inside it. Fatou held her breath behind the curtain. She could hear Amina moving around the room, one drawer after another. Then Amina began searching through the old wooden chest. Where is it? She whispered nervously. Fatou didn't move. The letter was still in her hands. She didn't fully understand what she had just read, but she knew one thing. That piece of paper was more dangerous than every lie Amina had ever told about Kofi. After several minutes, Amina finally left the room. Fatou waited. She listened until the sound of Amina's footsteps disappeared. Then she quickly stepped out. She slipped the letter beneath her clothes and hurried to her tiny room at the back of the house. She locked the door. Then she continued reading. The letter was written in Amina's handwriting, and it was addressed to a woman Fatou had never heard of. The first sentence made Fatou's heart race. If this letter ever reaches Bakari, I will lose everything. Fatou stopped. Then she kept reading. Amina was writing about the days before her marriage to Bakari. She knew Bakari owned a successful store. She knew he had a stable life with his first wife and their young son. But Amina had met him before he married her, and she hadn't fallen in love with him. She wanted something else, a better life, a better future for her own children, who were living with her family under difficult circumstances. Then Fatou reached a sentence that made her cover her mouth. I knew Kofi was not Bakari's real son. Fatou froze. She read the sentence again, then again. Kofi wasn't Bakari's biological son. Amina had discovered the truth before she married Bakari, but she never told him. She kept the secret. And according to the letter, she had used that secret for years. Whenever she wanted Bakari to punish Kofi, she reminded him that Kofi was different from her children, that he wasn't really one of them. But then, Fatou reached something even more disturbing. Amina had written, Kofi's real father never knew he had a son. Fatou stopped reading, then she looked at the next line. But I knew where he lived. The letter revealed the man's name, Musa. He lived in another city, and he owned a small store. Then came the biggest shock. Years earlier, Musa had contacted Amina. He wanted to know about the child, but he had no idea that Kofi was living with Bakari. Amina had hidden the letter. She had hidden the truth, but why? Fatou turned the page. There were only a few lines. If Bakari discovers that I knew the truth from the beginning, he will never forgive me. Then another line. And if Kofi discovers that his real father doesn't even know he exists, he will go looking for him. Fatou slowly lowered the letter. Now she understood. Amina wasn't cruel to Kofi simply because she hated him. She was afraid of him. His existence represented a secret that could destroy the life she had built. But then Fatou noticed something else. The date on the letter was decades old, yet something was missing, an entire page. Fatou placed the letter on her bed. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. She quickly hid it. It was Kofi. Fatou? She opened the door. Kofi stepped inside. He looked around. Have you seen Amina? Fatou shook her head. No. Kofi stared at her. He noticed the uneasiness in her face. You're hiding something? Fatou looked down. No. Kofi took a breath. You're the only person in this house who never treated me like a thief. Fatou said nothing. Then Kofi asked, Fatou, do you know anything about my mother? Her expression changed. Kofi's mother had died when he was very young, and no one ever talked about her. What about her? He asked. Fatou hesitated. Then she shook her head. Nothing. Kofi left, but those words stayed in his mind. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about his mother, and the next day, something happened that Amina never expected. Kofi came home from the market early. His father was sitting alone. Dad, I need to ask you something. Bakari looked up. What? Kofi hesitated. Did my mother know anything about my family before she died? Bakari's expression immediately changed. But before he could answer, Amina walked into the room. Who told you that? Kofi looked at her. Why does it matter to you? Amina stepped closer. Because you're starting to ask questions that don't concern you. They concern me? No. She pointed toward the house. You're living here because of Bakari. Don't forget that. Kofi stared at her. Then he said something neither of them expected. Maybe that's why you're afraid. Amina froze. Kofi hadn't expected to say it, but something in her eyes had changed. For the first time, he saw fear. Not anger, fear. Kofi walked away. A few minutes later, Amina entered Fatou's room. She closed the door behind her. Give me the letter. Fatou pretended not to understand. What letter? Amina stepped closer. Don't make me fire you. I don't know what you're talking about. Amina stared at her. If Bakari finds out you've been searching through my things, you'll be out of this house today." Then she walked away. But something had changed inside Fatou. She wasn't afraid anymore. She knew that staying silent meant becoming part of what was happening to Kofi. That night, she went to his room, she closed the door, then placed the letter in front of him. Kofi stared at it. "What is this?" "Something you should have known years ago." He read the first line, then the second. His expression slowly changed, and when he reached the name Musa, he looked up. "Who is this?" Fatou took a breath. "The man the letter says is your real father." Kofi didn't move. He simply stared at her, as if his mind couldn't process the words. Then he whispered, "My father?" Fatou lowered her eyes. "Bakari doesn't know." Kofi slowly sat down. His breathing became heavier. "How can any of this be true?" "I don't know." Fatou hesitated. "But there's a page missing." Kofi looked up. "Where is it?" "Amina is looking for it." And in that moment, Kofi understood something. Amina wasn't just trying to get rid of him, she was trying to keep the truth from coming out. But why was that missing page so important? The next morning, Kofi decided to search for the rest of the letter. He returned to an old storage room where Amina kept things she rarely used. He knew there was another wooden chest no one ever touched. He opened it. Inside were old clothes, photographs, a notebook. Then he found a small brown envelope. There was one name written across it, Musa. Kofi's hand began to shake. He opened the envelope. Inside was a much newer letter. But it wasn't from Musa, it was from Amina. Kofi began reading. "I knew the truth before I married you. But I never told you that Kofi wasn't your son." Kofi stopped. Then he read the next line. "I didn't do it to protect him." He kept going. "I did it because I was afraid of losing the life I had built." Kofi's hands trembled. Then he reached the next sentence. "But there is something neither you nor Kofi knows." His eyes widened. The next line had been torn away. Only part of it remained. "His mother didn't die from illness." Kofi slowly looked up. The room suddenly felt smaller. All his life, he had been told that his mother died from an illness. But this letter suggested something completely different, something that could change everything he remembered about her. Then, he heard a voice behind him. "What are you doing here?" Kofi turned. Amina was standing in the doorway, but she wasn't angry. She was crying. Kofi looked at her. "What happened to my mother?" Amina said nothing. Kofi stepped toward her. "What happened to my mother?" Bakari didn't know the whole truth, that much was obvious. "You knew?" Amina closed her eyes. "Yes." "What did you do?" A tear rolled down her cheek. "I didn't kill your mother." Kofi stared at her. Amina's voice broke. "But I was the reason you never learned the truth." "What truth?" Amina looked at him, and it was clear the moment she had spent 20 years running from had finally arrived. "Your mother didn't die alone." At that exact moment, Bakari walked into the room. He had heard the last sentence. He looked at Amina, then at Kofi. "What did you just say about his mother?" Amina couldn't answer. Bakari stepped closer. "What have you been hiding from me all these years?" She remained silent. Then Kofi pulled out the letter and placed it in front of his father. Bakari began to read. With every line, his expression changed. Until he reached the end, he slowly looked up at Amina. His voice was completely different now. "You didn't just hurt Kofi." Amina stopped crying. Bakari continued. "You hid the truth my first wife took to her grave." Then he looked back at the letter. "But this says there's someone else who knows what happened." Kofi looked at him. "Who?" No one answered. Then suddenly, the letter slipped from Bakari's hand. Because at the very bottom of the page, there was a name. The name of the person who had known the truth all along. The name of a man who had lived inside their home for years.